Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Becerra.
Here.
Commissioner Verino. Commissioner Alderetti.
Here.
Vice Chair Contreras-Leo.
Here.
Chair McLaughlin.
Here.
Commissioner Mendoza.
Here.
Commissioner Nguyen.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Would we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Eric, would you lead us, please?
And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Thank you. Public comments. Does a member of the public have any public comments on non-agenda items? You may fill out a request to speak. The form is with the secretary, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. I have one item right now for public comment, non-agenda. Dale Halvick.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and other commissioners. Just wanted to give you a quick picture of what's going on in North Santa Ana. This one down here is the one that we're opposed to, 2525. It's right up against single-family homes. All these other projects up here are in the works right now. 1,987 apartment units or hotels or townhomes or whatever are going in this area. Park Santiago and other northern neighborhood associations are really against this project. The traffic that's going to be created up there is going to be a real nightmare once all these projects get in, let alone 2525. The developer, or I should say the financial backing, AC 2525 LLC, sent out a flyer to the neighborhood today. And in it he says that the work with the neighborhood has been progressing, and he's got the backing of the neighborhood, and he's really enthused about the project. It could be no farther from the truth than that. We've had one meeting with him. We listened to his presentation. It wasn't very productive as far as deciding anything. It's still over 490 units. He's come down from 517 units. It's still way too big for that area. So the flyer or the mailer that was sent out is really, I've gotten a lot of emails already just in the 4 or 5 hours that people have had a chance to take a look at this mailer. It's really fired people up again. It's so full of misleading information that it's pretty sad to say. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you guys know what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Does anyone else have a public comment on a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments at this time and we'll move to the consent calendar. This is the time the Commission to consider matters with regards to the consent calendar. Do any members have any corrections or comments relative to the minutes of last meeting? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Second. I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. We won't have anything to do with the absentees since we're all here. Moving to the business calendar, we will now move to the business calendar. Please be advised that the actions of the Planning Commission shall become effective on the day following the first regularly scheduled City Council meeting after the 10-day appeal period, unless, if allowed by the Santa Ana Municipal Code, an appeal to the City Council is filed with the Clerk of the Council, and a copy is sent to the Planning Department within 10 days of the date of the Commission action, or unless set public hearing by City Council. An appeal from a decision or requirement of the Planning Commission may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. We will now move on to the business calendar, and it should be noted that item 1 on the agenda has been continued until the next meeting. So we will not be discussing item 1 at this point in time. But since there are people here that wanted to speak on behalf of this item, we will open up public comments only and allow you to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. And if anybody would like to speak at this point in time on item 1, please come forward.
What is item 1?
Item 1 is the modern day. Oh, I'll read it. It's the amendment to the application 2018-02 to allow zone change from residential R1 to open space O, and the general plan amendment number 2018-02 to change the general plan land use designation from low-density residential to institutional for modern day high school parking structure expansion project located at 1202 West Edinger Avenue. Okay. Hearing no public comments at this point in time, we'll close the public comments on item 1. At this time, we'll move on to consider item number 2, conditional use permits number 2018-03 and 2018-04 to allow the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption and after-hour operation until 2 a.m. at Father's Burrell Barbecue Pit located at 1810 North Tustin Avenue. Is there any commissioner at this point in time would like to make any disclosure on this item? Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had spoken with Pam Cepetto earlier this afternoon, and she is working on this project.
I was also reached out by Ms. Pam Cepetto, but we never had the opportunity to actually sit down and discuss the project, but she did want to discuss this project.
Okay. Eric?
I also received a text message from Pam Cepetto, but we never had the opportunity to speak.
I did speak with Ms. Pam Cepetto of Cepetto Real Estate Solutions. We spoke on the phone.
Thank you.
I did receive the text message request for a meeting, but never have met her.
Okay, and I too was contacted via text message and also a telephone call, and that was it.
I received a text from Pam as well. We never had the opportunity to meet on this item.
Okay, unanimous. All right. Staff, would you make your presentation at this point in time?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Before you, we have conditional use permit number 3, conditional use permit 2018-3 and 2018-4 to allow an on-premise alcohol ABC license and after hours at Father's Burrell Barbecue Pit restaurant located at 1810 North Tustin Avenue. As previously mentioned, the project is to allow the sale of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for on-premise consumption and to allow the restaurant to stay open until 2 a.m. daily. In addition, the applicant is proposing site improvements separate from this entitlement. The project site is located within the Community Commercial C1 zoning district, has a general plan designation of general commercial, and is surrounded by commercial land uses, a vacant property to the east, and a care facility center to the west of the property. Here before you is the site plan of the subject property. And in gray is the 2 units that will be occupied by the future eating establishment. This right here is a floor plan as proposed of how the restaurant will operate. In yellow, as you can see, is where the alcohol will be stored or displayed. Altogether, the alcohol is only less than 1% of the gross floor area of the restaurant. And this is a current site photo of the subject property. Pursuant to the C1 zoning district, a restaurant is allowed by right, and the after hours would be allowed with the conditional use permit. The new restaurant will provide a service to the community and visitors of the city of Santa Ana. These standards and conditions placed on the CUPs will ensure that the restaurant will not deviate or become an attractive nuisance to the surrounding businesses. With that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit number 2018-3 and 2018-4 as condition. Staff would like to clarify that the staff report does mention Unit 1812 North Tustin Avenue. During the tenant improvements, internally we're just going to create one address, so it'll only be 1810 North Tustin Avenue. Thank you.
Does the commission have any questions of staff? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the site plan, I'm sorry, on the floor plan, the tables I believe they're tables in the middle. Are they just round tables with chairs on both sides? The reason I ask is because they look different from the other, what I believe to be tables, so I just want to clarify those are tables. Okay, so
That's
they're just
correct.
round tables?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Could you tell me how many parking spaces for the designated for this establishment consists of 4,800 square foot, I believe, 4,806 square feet for this facility, and how many parking spaces were designated for this restaurant?
The restaurant with the 2 units will be a total of 2,500 square feet. The code requires 8 parking spaces per each 1,000 square feet of floor area.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. Hearing none, would the applicant like to speak at this time?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. I'm Pamela Cepetto, and I'm representing the applicant tonight. The applicant is John Marshall, and he has owned Father's Pub and Grill, which is just north of this property, but in unincorporated Orange County for 23 years without incident. And he is now partnering with Fred Burrell, who has had a barbecue business in Santa Ana for a long time. I'd like to introduce you to Fred, for those that may know him. Fred, would you like to come up and talk about your history in Santa Ana a little bit?
Good evening, Council. Excuse me. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Fred Burrell. And over the years, some 37 years, I started this business, Little Red Building on Hesperian and 3rd Street. And when I first started that business in this community, a person told me that whatever community that you do business in, give something back. So for 37 years, I did that. So for the last couple of years, I sort of been out of the business, and my customers, some of those won't let me quit. So I had the pleasure of running into my good friend, Mr. Marshall, who I've known for some 25 years. So we're going to put the two entities together and hope we can be successful for the next 37 years. Okay, so anyway, that's what I want to reiterate. But I want to express one thing. No business can survive in any city unless it has the express and the support of a council like yours and the city itself. So with that said, 37 years I have survived. I've seen a lot of joints come and go, but the Little Red Building it held up. So now we want to put my business with John Marshall's Father's Bar and be just as successful for the city and provide my customers what they said. Burrell, you got to get back in the game. I said, okay. Okay, so I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fred. So just as a brief history of or description of what we're requesting here is a conditional use permit to allow for the continued operation of the Father's Pub and Grill. So it's actually going to be operating much in the same way, only new and improved and with the barbecue. So they're asking to be open 7 days a week. The hours will be 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., with the barbecue being served from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Right now, there is not a request for live entertainment, although they are planning on requesting that in the future. So with that, we stand here to answer any other questions you may have. I think we've covered the parking. So if you have any other questions about that, just let us know. We'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of the applicant?
I do.
Ken?
You mentioned here there will be in the future we'll plan to submit application for entertainment. Could you explain to us where the entertainment will be held inside the establishment? Because on the application indicated dancing and late night entertainment will submit at future date.
Yes, we haven't submitted that yet, but it would be indoors.
Indoors.
Right.
And so we remove some of the table and chair inside the restaurant.
We would improve the facility to accommodate that, right?
Thank you. The barbecue sounds terrific. We need a good barbecue in our city.
I just want to make a quick comment to Mr. Burrell. I just want to say thank you for your endless efforts of supporting the youth in our city. There's never been a time that I haven't been part of a Boosters or an organization that you've never said no. You've always, with that smile, have always helped the youth. So I just want to say thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, Madam Secretary, have we had any written communication on this item?
We have not.
Thank you. We'll now open for the public hearing. I have several. I have just one card at this. Oh, it's you, Pam. So you're done. Any other public comments at this point in time? Hearing none, public comments are closed. We'll bring it back to the commission. Does anybody would like to make a motion on item number 2? Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving CUPs 2018-03 and 2018-04 as conditioned.
Second.
I'm second.
All right. Second is Cynthia. Any discussion? Phil?
One thing, I just also want to echo my thanks that you guys are going to open. I think not only it's great that, you know, who's opening the spot, but also Tustin needs a little TLC. So I think you guys will be the right fit for that area. So thank you again.
Any other? Go ahead.
I also, I'm very excited because some of the areas there are just closing way too early for me. I'm a night bird. So thank you.
Okay. No other comments? We'll make a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0, unanimous. Yes. Okay. All right.
Motion to continue the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Could I ask the reason why they want to continue in the next meeting? Is they not ready or something?
They're not.
Any reason?
Sure, they weren't ready yet. One of the things that Modern Day is working on is they're looking to get some kind of a agreement with the city council on how to fund some of their improvements. So the president is still working to meet with the different council people right now. So we asked for a couple more weeks before he came back with a final project before you. So he just needs a little more time.
Actually, Vince, how far are we continuing this? Just 2 weeks?
Just 2 weeks.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue item number 1 until the 23rd of April. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Okay. This is the time and place to consider item number 3, addendum to the Environmental Impact Report 1988-01, General Plan Amendment number 2015-01, Amendment Application number 2015-01, and Zoning Ordinance Amendment number 2015-01 to amend the Bristol Street specific plan. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they need to disclose at this time? Okay. Hearing none. Vince?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. Again, this item is 4 different actions before you this evening: zone change, general plan amendment, zoning ordinance amendment to the document, as well as EIR addendum. I'd like to give you a little bit of history here. First, I want to clarify to everybody in the public here that this project is not changing any of the right-of-way acquisitions that were approved back in 1991. All this is doing is changing the land uses that are allowed on the remnant parcels after the widening occurs. So for the most part, a lot of it was designated as open space. Now, because of a decrease in area that we need, which I'll get into momentarily, we have some availability of some excess land to be able to do some different uses with it and get some revenue back to the city. So the right-of-way was established back in 1991 by the widening plan, and those properties are still designated for the takings. This is only for the properties that are being touched after that widening occurs.
So Vince, just to clarify, the city is not purchasing any additional property at this time?
No, we are in the process of doing the third phase, which is like Warner North and Civic Center area, but that is it.
So nothing that we discussed today will involve any property acquisition?
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct. And just one more clarification, the last phase of the plan, which is 17th Street North, that is unfunded. We have no timetable. It's not in our 7-year capital improvement plan. It's there on the books, but we have no idea when that will occur. So anyway, so that's to clarify. We're talking about land uses here. We have to do a few things tonight. We have to recommend to the city council that want to change some of the zoning. The properties that have double zoning. One, it's zoned SP1, which is the Bristol plan. Then it has a subzone, which tells you what you can do with the property if it's available to be reused. A lot of it, again, is open space. Some of it's going to be residential. Some will be commercial. So we have to change some of that subzoning on these properties. They'll still be designated for Bristol Street. And then we have to change the general plan. When you change the zoning, you got to change your long-range vision to be consistent with the zoning. So we have a zone change, general plan amendment. And then thirdly, we have the amendment to the Bristol Street plan itself. The document you were attached to, you got last week here. It's this document right here. It was written back in 1991. It's pretty outdated, so we're coming with land uses. We thought, let's just clean up the document and just make it read like it was opened up today and read what's happening today. So it's been updated to reflect, its current items are happening right now there. So it talks about there was 100, say, houses on the corridor. Well, now there's not 100 houses because we've taken, quite a few of those, for instance. So it's basically an update to the text of the document. It also revises the right-of-way. One of the main key components of this plan is that back when the plan was adopted in 1991, we were going to have a 150-foot right-of-way. So from edge of sidewalk to edge of sidewalk, 150 feet. OCTA won't fund that wide width anymore. It's down to 128 feet. So now we have 22 feet of excess land that we can use to these properties and help make them more viable uses. So it's a text modification, the right-of-way is shrunken, and then we have to change the land use of some of these documents. So that's all within the Bristol Street plan here that you have attached to you. And then an addendum to the EIR. EIR was done 20-something years ago, and so we had to go back and just study what the impacts were to these land use changes. So that's what you have before you tonight. Again, it's a recommendation to the City Council. Whoops, wrong way, sorry. Okay, quickly here, project background, touched upon this recently for you. It was adopted, back in '91. It really was intended to improve Bristol Street. One of our main corridors to the city goes from, up north here to the city borders all the way down to Costa Mesa. It was 4 lanes up until the early '90s there. So again, a key corridor, 4 lanes, widen it to 6 lanes. When you widen it, reduce traffic congestion. Let's also add some landscape medians and parkways to make it a very beautiful corridor. Put bike lanes in. Bikes are critical now, even more important here in today's days here. So we're looking at adding bike lanes on there. And then we had to make it consistent with our general plan and our circulation element because those documents call out for a certain width for these major arterial streets. So that's what happened back in 1991. Again, the City Council approved several documents. They include an environmental impact report. They approved the Bristol widening plan that Public Works set before them. It says this is how much land we need. These are the properties that are going to be taken. Then we came in with a specific plan, this document, and said, again, now that we have these surplus properties, remnant parcels, what are we going to do with them? We don't want to leave them vacant for all these years. And so those were the documents that are all approved back in 1991. So that's your background for the project. So what about, wrong way, sorry. Gosh, I'll get this figured out here eventually. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, revised right-of-way here, and you can see in the circles there, the top of picture there is 150-foot right-of-way. You can see 15-foot landscape parkway and a 10-foot sidewalk. And now below, those have shrunk to a 6-foot parkway and an 8-foot sidewalk. So you went from 25 feet public right-of-way there on the sidewalk parkway to 14 feet. That's how we get 11 feet surplus. Both sides of the street, 11 times 2 is 22 feet. So we went from 150 down to 128 cross section. So that extra land there, now we have some availability to do something with these parcels. Gosh, I'll get this eventually. Okay, and this is the bird's eye view of the different properties, kind of different sections of Bristol Street. They're going to be touched by the land use changes. Those are there in red there for you. A little more detail for you briefly. So I'm going to go south to north here for you. Warner Avenue, which is kind of going on right now. This segment here is going on. So you see there in the boxes to the left there. So it says our add commercial option. Before it was all Parkway. Recently, the city Public Works Agency widened that intersection, and we purchased that property there to the left, which is in the left box. And we have that plus the corner piece, plus some also property up there going north on Bristol Street that we could use for a viable commercial property. So that is not designated for park, but it could also be used for commercial. So we get being a key intersection, Bristol and Warner, we get a good development out there. We can allow it to be converted over to commercial uses. And then all these properties will in turn, we'll sell the property, that money will be reinvested back into the corridor, because it has to be, because we acquire these properties with this widening special funding mechanisms, it has to go back into the corridor. So we can look at buying more properties, we can look at underground utilities, putting in better landscaping, so all kinds of different options we can explore for this. So for this particular piece to the left there, again, now we have a commercial option for those properties. And then up north, to the right there a little more, as you can see here, change from park to residential. Now that we have extra land, those properties are wide enough, 50 feet wide and deep enough, where they can now be, instead of park, we can sell them out for single-family houses. So those houses will face those secondary streets. They won't face Bristol anymore, so you won't have the same impact. But now we're recapturing some of this land and making it, again, reinvesting it back into the community there, in the corridor. So those are our proposals for this segment here from Warner to St. Andrew. And again, these properties were designated for takes years ago, and all we're doing is changing what you can do with the property. Enter to McFadden. There's one piece of property up there. That is the digital media incubator site. And it's actually a parking lot right now, but that one piece up there on top, that's a piece that was designated, wasn't designated for anything. So we said, whoops, we currently have a building there, we have a parking lot, so let's just put that project site into the plan here. So now it's all part of the digital media incubator site. This is a piece between McFadden and Bishop. This is actually a piece that wasn't even designated. It was actually right next to a school site. And we thought the school was going to widen and take some of the land there for, I think it's King's School, I believe. They're going to take some of the property and widen their boundaries. They never did. So now we put that property back into there, and it's basically just a linear park, like the rest of the corridor will be. Down to the left there, again, some properties didn't go, we don't need as deep properties there, so those properties there to the left, we have two properties that now be designated for residential single-family houses. Then you go to the right, that's the Bishop House, I believe it's called the Bishop House in the corner. We widened the street, that's actually privately owned, but we widened the street and we had it to be designated office, but it's a house, and they remodeled the house and maintained it, so we're just changing designation to be consistent with what's out there right now. So that's going to be a single-family residential. This piece is from First Street to Civic Center. And again, bottom left, a couple of properties big enough for residential. Some properties here. The ones in the middle there on the bottom, those were designated as redevelopment district. Well, if you look at the plan, there really isn't a definition of what your redevelopment district is, number one. Number two, redevelopment is no longer part of our vernacular here. It's gone. So we just changed those over to commercial, because that's what we think it wanted to be, a commercial corridor. You got Bristol, you got Civic Center, a key intersection there. So that's just being redesignated to commercial. Then you get some other properties there that are commercial as well, and then a few there to the right that are, again, from park over to residential single families. And again, these residential properties will not face Bristol Street. We don't want the same condition we had currently existing previously, where all these houses and all these driveways are pointing on Bristol Street. We want to kind of keep the traffic flowing, improve safety, and so the houses will be facing on the side streets that will not be on Bristol. Got a couple of more here. Civic Center to Washington Drive, again, another residential up on top. And then below what's Linear Park, now that we have more land, it's now a commercial option to go on these properties over here. And I believe that's actually where In-N-Out Burgers and is located right there. So now it's going to be remodeled, actually rebuilt in a new facility at that location. And that'll be before you in the future. And then the last segment here, this part here, again, 17th to 21st, unfunded. Don't know when this is going to occur, but those properties all there in yellow were designated to be linear parks. And now because of the extra land, we can now reuse them back as residential properties. So we'll eventually acquire the properties and then sell them off. Maybe the houses can stay there if the street widening doesn't impact the properties. Or we'll need to take them and then sell them off for new properties. So those are mostly the changes. There's a total of 34 zone changes and 31 general plan updates to kind of make sure they're all consistent. So again, why are we doing this? Well, the plan was adopted in 1991, so it's pretty outdated. Number two is OCTA said we're not going to fund any future widening with the wider right-of-way, so we have to shrink it. This plan's going to activate some of these parks out there. We're going to get some revenue back in the city. We're going to be able to sell them. We're looking to hire a broker, a couple of brokers to kind of market all our properties. So by doing the zoning and general planning in advance, gives the brokers the ability to say, hey, these properties are ready for you to build on. The city is already change all the zoning and general plans, so you can come in and build instead of having to go back parcel by parcel, wait 6 to 9 months to go through the development process. Kind of expedites that process here. And then again, it turns these into financial assets for the city. And then all these properties that we're changing here are going to be consistent with our goals and objectives of the general plan. And with that, we're recommending that you recommend to the city council that they approve the zone change, which is the AA, the zoning ordinance amendment, which is the text changes to the document, and then adopt the resolution for the general plan amendments, and then as well as adopting the addendum to the EIR. That concludes my presentation. I'm out here to answer any questions you may have and clarify
Thank you,
anything.
Vince. Does any of the commissioners have? Okay, Lynette?
Vince, I didn't see a slide for Washington to 17.
Then that will not be touched. Whatever's in the books right now will remain as it is.
So that the zoning there's no proposed changes for that?
No, I believe that segment has some commercial already built in on the east side of the street.
Okay.
And the Bristol Coalition, there's a couple of doctors, an eye doctor and a dentist
Yeah.
that want to stay there. And so
Right.
we're working with them right now to rebuild their buildings.
Okay, that's
And
what-
McDonald's too.
I just wanted to check on that because I know there's been some.
If it's not listed in the book, it's not changing. Whatever was approved back in 91 as far as land use wise, it's staying the same.
Okay, so they're not included in any of these phased.
That's correct.
Table 1.
That's correct.
Okay.
Patrice?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are the draft addendums to the EIR report, where did those come from? Were those part of the meetings that we had for the general plan advisory, from the general plan advisory group, or where did those amendments come from?
The minutes,
Amendments.
The addendum?
the addendum,
Yes.
where did this come from?
No, the changes, where did they come from? Were they part of the,
The GPAC.
Revisions
No,
that
the
we
general
did?
plan- No, this was started about 3 or 4 years ago. We started this initial work to update the general plan because we wanted to sell some of these properties off because we had the smaller right of way. So the city manager said, "Hey, let's take advantage of some of the financial abilities we have here. Let's market all of our properties. So take a look at Bristol Street because now we have more land that can go back to the properties." So that's how it all started, based upon discussion in Public Works, Planning, and the city manager's office.
okay, and one more question. What does it take to possibly put some skateboarding stalls? I know you have some bike stalls. What would it take?
Conversation with Parks and Recreation. Bristol Street's a pretty heavily traveled corridor. I don't think they have any type of active parks designated for that area there. It's a passive park, essentially, a walk-in visual park. There's a skateboard park that's going to go in downtown, actually on 4th Street, near 4th Street Market. And I believe there's a skate park also somewhere down, I think it's in Centennial Park.
Centennial Park.
Centennial Park, right. But the discussion with Parks and Rec would be the one to find out if we're going to add additional skate parks in the city.
Thank you.
Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the designation, park with commercial option, are those sites, are they going to be landscaped at first until somebody comes in and says, I'd like to purchase it and exercise the commercial option? Or are they going to remain what they are now? Because the city's done a fantastic job on these linear parks. They look beautiful. But then you've got the sites that have been acquired, and we're kind of obviously at this point where we're trying to figure out what we're going to do as far as the land use, et cetera. But once the commission acts and the council acts, what can the community expect to see? Will there be landscaping or just the chain link fences?
The funding's there for the improvements to get in to make a linear park.
Okay.
But we're also, again, our part of this intent here is to take all these properties probably in June, once it gets approved, to get a broker to start marketing them. And if we know a property is being proposed to be purchased, we'll probably hold off on making it a park because we know it's going to be transitioned over.
Okay, and then my other question is, does the commercial designation allow for any mixed use opportunities, or is it strictly commercial?
It is strictly commercial.
Okay.
Strictly
All
commercial.
right, thank you.
Eric?
So, thank you. For following up on the point that Commissioner Becerra just made about the commercial versus the commercial and park designation, what was the methodology used for deciding when it would be just commercial versus commercial, possibly park?
A couple of things we looked at. One was the location of it. If it's at an intersection, we want to get the commercial. We have an abundance of commercial right now in the city, so we're looking to kind of minimize the commercial. So we're looking at a couple of things. Key locations, Bristol and Civic Center is a key intersection for us. So we're looking at the location, and also the geometrics of the property. Is it wide enough? Is it deep enough to have a viable commercial property on it? And some of the ones that you have in there in the old Planter linear parks, they weren't deep enough to have a really good commercial project. So they're staying that way. So it's mainly those two reasons: the geometrics and also the location.
Okay. And then when I was looking at the staff report, one of the kind of a portion of the sentence on page 3.2 says, adding parcels to the plan that were erroneously omitted from the original specific plan document. Does that mean that we are, I mean, I know Commissioner Becerra asked it, but that to me is a little bit confusing. Are we adding parcels that never existed, or?
More specifically, it was the ones I brought up. It's the little piece of property as part of the digital incubator site.
Oh, gotcha.
That we included, and also those 2-3 parcels next to the King Elementary School that we didn't zone them in the plan. So those were those two pieces that were specifically addresses.
All right, thank you.
Cynthia?
In regards to going back to find out who might be interested in some of those parcels, how will you promote them to the community?
Public Works is going to hire a broker or brokers. If we can get one that specializes in commercial and residential, we'll hire that one. But their intent is to hire a broker to go out and marketing the properties to the development community. And also to, I doubt you'll see small residential builders because these properties aren't big enough, but maybe go back to the people who live in the area, want to go back into the community. Maybe their house was taken to widening, but now there's some residential properties available. So that's the initial intent, is to do that. Hit up the local area and then hit up the real estate brokers, so cast a wide net.
Any other questions of the commission and staff? Beatrice?
There are some concerns around my kid's school, Santiago. There is a lot of police activity due to the construction zones. I think that some of the people are interested in learning or knowing about when the completion of this project is, because as you know, it's really, really crowded with traffic from Memory Lane until 217. And there's always, I drive by there every day, every morning, every afternoon, so there's police activity. They're ticketing often because of the, construction. Do you have an expected, date, or what can I tell the parents?
Okay, from 17th, Memory Lane is not part of this project right now. It's unfunded, but there may be some other street improvements that are happening out there that
Thank you.
Mr. Higgins may be aware of, and I'm not sure of the noticing requirement that they do. But I know that sometimes you lose a lane to go up there, so maybe
Thank
Kay
you.
can
Not necessary, but
clarify it for us.
thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, I would imagine the construction actually is from south of 17th Street. It's affecting all the way up to Memory Lane. I don't have all the schedules for all the phases of Bristol, but we can provide that to the commission.
Thank you.
Tay, so let's be clear too. North of 17th up to La Vida, there's no funding at this point in time for any widening or anything to happen, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's an unfunded portion of Bristol widening.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Cynthia?
Vince, actually, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to Bristol Street widening, I feel like there's a unique opportunity here to create something special with this corridor. If we look at areas like Long Beach, they have that type of widened street, and they have such commercial use, little boutiques and different types of foods, and it's become such a nice area to walk that I don't know if we can just continue to ride on that wave. Just thoughts. I don't know if those have been any ideas that you guys have considered.
Sure. No. Note well taken, and we'll consider that here. This plan is not intended to have a bunch of strip commercial out there. It's more little specialty kind of buildings there. You've seen a couple out there. There's I think it's Taqueria Deanda on Chestnut, I believe it is, in Bristol, and there's a couple of medical buildings kind of spread out there. So you're not going to see a traditional strip commercial out there anymore. So you'll see some little specialties. So we have some design guidelines, and they can help us kind of shape the designs of buildings and shape the property. So, no, appreciate it.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, Vince, thank you. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communication on this item?
Yes, and all communication has been distributed to the commission.
Does anybody have any questions about the written communication at this point in time? Vince, I've got one item for clarification. So Daryl Taylor from Rancho has raised some questions relative to the zoning. Can you clarify what specifically we have as issues there?
Sure. He was asking about the use of the property. Rancho San Diego College. San Diego College owns the property at the southeast corner of Bristol and 17th Street.
Correct.
And they just wanted to be sure that these zoning changes wouldn't impact their ability to do something on the property. So his property is being touched. There's a piece on the east side of on that property there that's going to be rezoned from office to commercial. It has a split zoning on it. Didn't make any sense, so it's all going to be commercial. They'll be able to still do any buildings out there, want to do some parking out there, all that will still be allowed to be done. So he sent a letter in about an hour ago stating that they're okay. I think, did you pass it out, Sarah? Yeah, so you have that for you. So their issues have been resolved.
Any other comments on the letter? Lynette?
But you just said that that from Washington to 17th, that nothing was changing
I
from
guess,
91.
yeah, that's one that is just a.
But his is
it's a
being
tweak.
redesignated as commercial.
That one piece is, you're absolutely right. I don't think.
Okay, so which one is that one in the
Do I have
table?
that one? Let's see if I have that on here. It's 58 on the table. Table 58, and it's, let's see.
58A?
Yes, yeah, I'm looking
Phase 3?
I'm looking for the maps. Let's see. Let me pass this around here.
So this is all going commercial. So this is currently all commercial?
Yes, it's currently commercial on 17th and Bristol on the corner, and then the properties to the east there is zoned professional office. So it's a mismatch of zoning.
But are you changing it to commercial? 'Cause
Yes, that little part that I scribbled there.
So just to clarify, what's the zoning currently on the east side of Bristol between Washington and 17th?
It's professional.
East side of Bristol. East side of Bristol.
Correct, across from the college going down to Washington.
Okay.
Now-
Well, their property is just the one on the corner.
Right, but I'm just saying, because I'm looking at the map here, and it's all commercial, and throughout time, there have been, some commercial uses, some office uses, so I just want to get clarity, because it's not that we're doing a wholesale big change.
That's correct.
It's
That's correct.
zoning clean.
Correct. And again, the only piece that's changing is that one little piece on the corner of Bristol 17th, on the east side, that is going from professional office to commercial.
So then why does this page say that it's all commercial? Right, but didn't you just earlier say that the Bristol Coalition wanted to, some of the properties they're gonna stay?
Yes.
So when they need to, if they're a dentist or an optometrist?
It's commercial now. Professional office is
that
allowed in
would-
commercial zone.
So those will be allowed in the commercial
That's
zone,
correct.
So that's how it'll make.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Eric?
So we received an email from the Johnson Chapel AME Church, and do you have any more information on this? Because as I read it, I'm not sure I understand what the concern is about the cul-de-sac.
Well, Mr. Gabriel from Public Works was here earlier. He spoke with them outside, and he's addressed their issues. They're going to have a follow-up meeting, but they had an issue not related to the plan, related to some traffic issues and circulation issues with that cul-de-sac that's currently existing there.
Okay, thank you.
So they took the conversation offline.
Got it.
So they weren't asking for us to open it back up to Bristol?
That I'm not sure. But I doubt it's going to occur because we did an EIR and we based upon cul-de-sac in a bunch of streets. And that's one of those that got cul-de-sac. There's a fence there. or at least a cul-de-sac and permanent improvements already made.
Okay. But also, I mean, with it being sidewalk to sidewalk, that's a public works issue, not on our land.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll move on to the public hearing. We are now open for the public hearing on item number 3. You have 3 minutes. If you filled out a card, if you haven't filled out a card, please get one from the secretary. We'll start with Ricardo Ortega.
Good evening, everybody. It happens that I live right on Bristol Street, right where it's in Andrew and Bristol, right on the corner. And my concern is about the safety of people that lives in the area, because there's almost like 3 times a month that accidents happen right on that corner. And it just like, if you look to the statistics about the accidents happens there, it's just like 3 accidents per month, and for the last 12 years or so. And after reviewing the plans, I see there is not going to be any type of light posted there. I was kind of thinking of something about cul-de-sac or something. Whoever planned that, I know it was on the best interest of the city, but it happens that I live there 24/7. And my concern is like accidents happen like 2 in the morning, you name it, any time of the day, accidents happens there. Because there's the Mother Day School right across from there. And that's my main concern. It's not about the city looks pretty, they have walkways and all that, but it's about the safety of the people that lives there. One life matters, and it sure matters to everybody here. And I hear the discussions, but to this point, nobody says nothing about safety. Everybody's talking about the city's going to look pretty, you're going to have lands to convert, to sell it to the city, but nobody here saying anything, a single word about safety. And that's my main concern, because I live down that house 24/7, and that's my main concern. If there's anything can be done to fix that issue, to me it's issue number 1. Besides, the city looks pretty, has pretty trees. The maintenance of the tree, it costs money. When a life is lost, it's even worse.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Mr. Chair, what intersection did he reference?
Yeah, I didn't get that intersection.
Bristol and St. Andrews.
St. Andrews. Okay, thank you.
Tish Leone.
Okay, thanks everybody for donating your time. I know that being a commissioner is a privilege, so thank you for doing this. I also want to thank you for doing the interpretation with the headsets. I know there's a lot of Spanish speakers here that didn't know what was going on the first time this happened. So the only thing that I would suggest is that you announce it so that everybody would know that that is going on. My concern is, well, first off, I know that nothing is going to be done from 17th up Bristol going up north. But the problem, what is happening is because the owners received notice that years ago that the property is going to be taken over and, torn down. So they're not making improvements. They're raising the rents to the tenants, but they're not making any quality of life improvements. The stoves aren't working, the floors are messed up, there's leaks, there's plumbing problems. So I know that the Planning Commission doesn't really have anything to do with that, but maybe because this part is following you, that we could get code enforcement or public works, somebody out there to take care of these issues, because if it's going to be 2 to 5 years down the road before anything is going to happen, the quality of life of the renters is being affected. So anyways, I just wanted to speak on the behalf of those people that live on Bristol. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tish. Herlinda Solado.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Erlinda Salcedo. Solamente vengo a apoyar lo que dice Tish y vengo a representar a varios de mis vecinos, lo mismo que los dueños desde que recibieron la carta de que van a tumbar esa área donde yo vivo, no quieren hacer arreglos a las casas. Es mi comentario. Gracias.
Vince, could we have a clarification to her question? She's asking the notices that the neighbors there received that their property was going to be taken, that was going to happen. That was some time ago and things have changed.
The notices that were sent out are for any property within 500 feet of the Bristol corridor. So that's our requirement for noticing. So although their properties may not be affected because they live within that notification boundaries, we sent out about 2,800 letters notifying them of the meeting here. So
they will not.
No, I never said property is going to be taken. No. That's not the way we operate.
Okay. Go ahead, if you'd like to.
Okay.
Dijo.
Y aparte de que no nos están arreglando, nos están subiendo la renta.
In addition to not making these improvements, the owners are increasing our rent. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item at this time? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just clarify one thing here? I was talking to Tig Higgins. If we're going to acquire a piece of property, the first notice they'll get is a notice of request to appraise the property. So there'll be an appraisal will be the first thing that they get contact from the city on. So.
Okay. State your name and.
John Fairbrother.
Okay.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. Echoing what Commissioner Mendoza had mentioned regarding the extension or the widening of the street from 17th North to Memory Lane, as Vince Fregoso has mentioned, that's not anywhere in the funding or anywhere in the near future. However, I believe it's actually quite incumbent upon the Planning Commission going with this widening to work with the Santa Ana Unified School District to perhaps design a primary entrance for Santiago Elementary School out of the adjacent neighborhood and make use of the widening of Bristol Street to provide a more appropriate access for the elementary school, alleviating traffic in the neighborhood, which has become a considerable concern, both for safety and just for, I guess, ease of life, what have you. I know that's kind of off, but I did see in one of the slides there was a parcel on the corner of 22nd and Bristol, which was apparently remnant, or it was shown to be left over for a commercial use. It would be possibly a great opportunity to make that a signalized corner, and then you can add the primary driveway to Santiago Unified on the school premises. There's plenty of open ground already there. I know a general argument is, that's their open space, fields for kids to run and what have you. But there is also no guarantee that the Santa Ana Unified School District will not take that very same land that they're saying shouldn't be used for a street and then add more buildings to increase the flow or actually increase the student body. While at the same time not actually addressing the underlying issue that this is no longer a neighborhood school that it was built in the 1950s. It now has hundreds upon hundreds of children who most usually come in from other places, and so they're driven in the mornings and in the afternoons. Thank you for your time. That was just my main point.
Thank you, John. Marcos Nelson.
All right, thank you very much. I live I butt up against Bristol, just south of Washington. And I just wanted to address a couple of things that I heard that kind of concern me, and that's what Mr. Becerra said, and I'm sorry, sir. Ms. Vergosa? Vergosa. Is that you stated that they're not wholesale changes, and they are wholesale changes. I just wanted you to be aware of that when you say that the original plan is to have the parkway and things like that, and then now it's zoning for commercial business, I just want you to be aware of when you speak that it is wholesale changes. What was once is no longer, so now it's completely different. So, I mean, I actually, being there, I'm happy that there's going to be buildings behind me now. But I just want you to be aware of the verbiage that you use of wholesale changes, and when you stated that it's little things, it's not little things, it's major things. I just wanted that to be on the record.
Thank you, Marcus. Patricia Alacuz.
Good evening, Council. Patricia Velasquez. I just wanted to make note of the Bristol Street widening. I live on Bristol and 22nd Street, right on the corner, and there are many, many evenings that we hear the car crashes, we hear racers, we hear motorcycle races, and this is past 10 o'clock at night, going all the way to 3 in the morning, nightly. I've called the police many times that I've heard these cars. They want me to get a license plate. I'm sorry, by the time I run outside to get a license plate, they zoom by so fast. And it's worrying me with the widening, these people are going to go even more so. I've heard car crashes. There was one right on the corner of Bristol and Santa Clara where somebody was killed because of these racers. They didn't see. I'm pretty sure it was a pedestrian that they did not see, and he was hit and killed. And it worries me with these people and really nobody paying attention to the calls when, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I know my neighbor has called in many times also because of hearing these people race through Bristol. And that worries me, the safety of the people on the street, whether they're walking or driving. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Does anyone else want to make a public comment at this point in time on item number 3? Hearing none, we'll close the public comments at this point in time. We'll bring it back to the commission. Cynthia?
Vince, in regards to in the concerns that Tish Leon and Erlinda Salcedo had in regards to, their homes not being taken care of by the landlord and rents being raised, can we put them in touch with code enforcement and have them have some face-to-face time?
They should have quality housing until something occurs on the property, so absolutely 100%.
Great. Thank you.
Can I speak on that?
Lynette?
Actually, I'd rather do something a little bit more widespread. I mean, I know a lot of those properties are duplexes and they're rentals. Could we possibly make a recommendation to code enforcement to just do a sweep of that area? Send a message out to the landowners that even though, yes, their properties are going to be part of the Bristol Street widening, that there's no reason for them to not make improvements that are, and if they don't, and it jeopardizes the safety of the residents, that they need to be cited. I think we need to send a message there. I can see that that's happening. The owner's saying, hey, Bristol widening, the properties are going to go away in Bristol widening. I don't want to spend any money making improvements. And then they increase the rents to the tenants and, let them live with, leaky faucets and substandard conditions. And I think that's unacceptable.
Sure.
Maybe a town hall or something.
Well, in that regard, a lot of this is landlord-tenant relationship that the city doesn't get involved in. But if those properties aren't like weeds, maintenance, that sort of stuff, the city can cite them for.
They're
but
substandard,
but like a notice of habitability or habitability issues are going to be mostly between the landlord and the tenant, to the extent they're not health and safety code violations.
Right.
So. But I think they ought to be told. I mean,
sure.
Now, does the city own any properties north of 17th along Bristol?
I don't believe we do. I think we purchased a few for the Bristol and 17th Street enhanced
North of
intersection.
17th, if you're going from 17th to Memory Lane.
Correct.
On the right-hand side, the water.
Well, the water facility, the water tower, yeah.
No, but I mean as far as any of the residential along there, none of them have been acquired by the city, because
That's correct.
Commissioner Alderetti is right. Unless the city is the landlord on the property, then it really is a private matter.
Sure. We get complaints, like I heard a couple complaints about some properties. We can have code enforcement go out there and investigate them, and those specific ones. But
You know,
I'll speak with the code enforcement manager and see what we can do to address these concerns.
So, way back when, don't want to outdate myself more than, but, you know, when Minnie Street was Minnie Street, it is now Cornerstone Village. I still like to call it Minnie Street. Same issues were going on. Landlords, different people owned 3, 4, 5 units and weren't taking care of them. And it was a partnership. It's not just the city. It's the city, our local state reps, and everybody brought their resources and were able to hold people accountable. So I think whatever that model was, and I was a part of that, it was great and it worked. So there's no need to live in substandard conditions.
Sure. I'll meet with the code enforcement manager and get back to you by the next meeting with an action plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to continue the discussion like Commissioner, Moreno and Contreras-Leo, because as I was reading the report, I'm sure you guys noticed that it says that the project enhances the values of the properties. So I think we're contradicting each other. I mean, if the city went to the homeowners or the landlords and said, hey, this is going to increase your property value, well, what's the landlord going to do? They're going to increase the rent. So in a way, I feel like we're kind of contradicting ourselves here. So I don't know, maybe we can continue to...
Well, actually, to kind of piggyback onto my colleague's comments, so has any of the property owners north of 17th received that letter that you talked about, the notice of appraisal?
No, because that segment is unfunded, so there's no reason to go out there right now.
So essentially, we've got some property owners that are just kind of taking advantage of what's being talked about out there. So I think it really would be in the best interest of the folks that are up there to have code enforcement to really go up there, because I think, one, it's not just simply a quality of life issue, but hopefully they could bring some sort of literature that would just explain, like right now there is no action as far as the acquisition at this time, because I think an educated tenant is a better position to deal with a landlord that's trying to play a game with them. So hopefully there could be not only just code enforcement action, but maybe planning could provide some basic literature that would just let them know that something isn't going on that isn't really going on.
Sure, not a problem. I'll coordinate with the committee for code enforcement, and we'll get together an action plan and get back to you. That's a great idea. Let them know the timing.
You don't have to give them the EIR, just a
letter explaining what's going on. Absolutely, it's been 20-something years since a lot of people have been contacted or know about the plan, so it's probably changed over the years ownership. So it'll be a good opportunity to get a refresher.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why the landlord would not put in money, because he or she may think, well, it's going to get condemned, and I'm going to get the fair value, market value, which isn't going to be really impacted by the quality of the structure. That's not going to push the needle on the valuation. I know in the city of Rubidoux, I had to work with them many years ago because they had a similar issue where drug dealing was being done. But the way they stopped it was by going after the landlords that were allowing it to be done, by hiding it in fences. And they took the minor code violation and hassled the city. The city hassled them to try to get them in compliance. And by filing notices of violation, and then fees occur, and then landlords kind of buckled. So, anyway.
You know, my one question is, this started back in 1991?
I was adopted in 91, so it probably started in 89.
Okay, but let's say 91. So we're going on 30 years, and we have an unfunded section of Bristol, with the probability of what's going to happen, no one knows, but it's probably low at this point in time from a funding point of view.
Jason Gabriel explained to me this afternoon that our CIP, capital improvement program, for the next 7 years has $0 committed to this Bristol widening. So at least for the next 7 years, we don't see any movement at all.
So it's
on that
not,
segment.
it's not in, so we're gonna go on 30 years where neighbors, where homeowners have been noticed that their property is gonna be taken. I mean, isn't there some way we can kind of bring this to a close and possibly say it's not gonna happen? I mean, you know, if the city isn't funding it for the next 7 years, it hasn't been funded for the last 25 plus years. Why are we kidding around and doing this to the people that live there and the people that potentially could live there?
You know, this will be a great discussion item at our next meeting, because I believe the CIP plan is going to be before you, and the Public Works will be here to present it. We can talk to them about it then. I can tell you, it does need to be done, because you got 6 lanes all the way from Warner up to 17th Street. Then you pinch down to 4 lanes, and once you get over to the bridge, the river, it goes back open to 6 lanes. So it will need to get done to finish that segment to meet all the intents of the plan, to meet all our funding requirements, and to meet OCTA's requirements for all the funding, in the past. So it's going to get done, and we may get a bucket of money in 3 years. Maybe some funding that comes in, but for now it's just not funded. So we're not going to tell people in 5 years when we have no funding right now. So as for the next 7 years, we don't have a plan. But again, situation could change where somebody comes in with a bucket of money to the federal government or OCTA says, here's the money for that last piece. So I don't see it ever going away because of what we've done so far in the past, and it's that last little piece that finishes it off.
Okay, Phil?
It's funny, we're talking about, I appreciate some of the folks in the community brought up safety as a concern and the speed of traffic and the numerous accidents they're facing. And, I know some of our city staff is working on traffic calming measures through the neighborhoods. And, it's kind of funny because one of the things that's stuck out with me on this plan is this page 54, we talk about transforming Bristol into a great European boulevard. I'm like, okay, well, I've never seen a European boulevard with strip malls and traffic going that quick. I mean, this isn't the Autobahn. We're trying to, kind of create something a little more friendly. We've got these beautiful linear parks along Bristol that we're trying to do. So I'm looking at this going, European boulevards, and then I flip 10 pages later and we talk about buildings having to be practically up on top of the residential properties behind them. And I see the talk of how to fence certain parts in, but then having these gigantic parking lots that on a Sunday end up being a pain in the butt for our police officers to have to enforce activities taking place in there. So, I mean, personally, one thing I would like to do if we're going to move forward with the recommendation, at the very least, I'd ask my colleagues to consider is revising this section 6.1.2 on page 68. It talks about building sitting, where it says buildings shall be sited as close to the rear property as possible. Now, that to me bothers me. If we're trying to create a European boulevard, this is completely the opposite of that, is completely. But there is a portion in that same paragraph where it talks about the space between the rear building walls and the back of the building, having some sort of fence there at least 6 feet high, so it prevents unnecessary entry into that spot. If you move the buildings closer to Bristol, and you have that same fence between the rear of the building and that rear property line, now you're keeping those parking lots from being used during the off hours. And it pushes the buildings away. I know that when you have the buildings that close to the rear property line, you're creating an echo chamber. It makes noise. In fact, my car recently had a brake problem. So what did we do? We drove the car in between a building that was 10 feet away from the rear property line so we can hear the echo. I'm sure the folks behind there didn't want to hear my brakes squeaking, but they did, and it was probably louder than it would have been had the building been situated closer to Bristol. So that's just something I want to bring up to my colleagues that we should definitely look at revising, because as staff has told us, this plan is outdated. We're talking something from the 90s, and we've got a couple of plans in the city that, as we look at some of our newer plans, they're in complete conflict with plans like this. So just something for us to consider. I'd love to see us reverse that trend and push the buildings closer to Bristol.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion on this item at this time?
Well, Mr. Chair, I've never been a big fan of widening Bristol to be the next 57 freeway, but we're not talking about width here, we're talking about land use. And so I think our commission had some good discussion here tonight and direction for staff as far as things that we can do to try to address some of the issues that folks from the community brought up today. So first of all, thank you everybody for bringing those to our attention. And with that, I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we recommend to the City Council that they adopt a resolution approving the addendum to the EIR number 1988-01 for the Bristol Street specific plan, adopt a resolution for the general plan amendment number 2015-01, adopt an ordinance approving amendment application number 2015-01, and adopt an ordinance approving zoning ordinance amendment number 2015-01 with the condition that we modify section 6.1.1 and 6.1.2 in regards to situating the buildings closer to Bristol.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Lynette, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0, unanimous. That is the end of our business calendar at this time. We'll now move to the work study.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I just let you know that Ali Piscopo went home sick today, so we're not going to do the second study
Right.
session item or the item of current planning.
Ann is going to do the review of the proposed
Yes.
project. She works this in.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Yes.
No, actually, most of them were here on Bristol. There were probably about 15 or 20 people. Well, we sent most of them. So we sent already. We can do that. I'm going to actually also close it to Ann Nye because she's retired. We're clearing the room, Ann. For those in the back, if you could please exit to the lobby, we would appreciate it. We need to continue our meeting.
Si pueden pasar afuera, por favor, vamos a continuar la junta. Muchas gracias.
Okay, Ann.
Thank
you're
you.
on.
Good evening, Chairperson, members of the Planning Commission. What I have for you tonight is an informal study session of a residential development that will be coming to you in the next month or so. This proposed project is a 12-unit townhome development. Because in the past, the Planning Commission had indicated there certain times when staff recommending some of the variances, you have raised concerns. So what I'd like for you to consider tonight is have a chance to review this proposed development before it comes to you formally. So this is a proposed townhome, 12-unit townhome development on Bewley Street. Bewley Street is one street east of Harbor Boulevard. So Bewley Street, unfortunately, was not included as part of the North Harbor mixed-use corridor. However, it is developed primarily with multifamily developments. Currently, the property is zoned R2. However, it has a general plan land use designation of LR7, which is equivalent to a single-family general plan. So in order to develop this up to the zoning allows, they would require a general plan amendment, which is up the general plan to be a medium density in order to accommodate this 12-unit townhome development. So that's the first discretionary action that they will need. And with that, this project, their intention is to develop per the city's current townhome standards. As you all know, the current city townhome standards was designed back in the 90s, which is a little outdated. So there will be a number of variances that are needed in order to accommodate this development. So you all have received the renderings in the email, and you also have the hard copy in front of you. So let me just quickly outline some of these variances. The first variance will be for the yard, which including the front yard, side yard, and rear yard. Because of the type of design, which is an alley-loaded project, so a lot of these units, they would not be able to provide the required front yard or the rear yard as indicated in the townhome standards. So a variance would be needed in order to accommodate these alley-loaded type of design, which means they will not be able to comply with all of the yard requirements, including the front. So some of the units will have a front yard, some of the units will have the rear yard, but the ones in the middle, they will not have either one of the front yard or rear yard, or they have a smaller, reduced front yard. The second item that they will be asking for variance is the off-street parking requirement. Traditionally, 4 parking spaces are required for each townhome, which include 2 in the garage and 2 guest parking. So this project, and they will have the 2 garage spaces for each townhome. However, the guest parking will not be able to come up to the code requirement, which is 2 per unit. They will have 1 guest parking per townhome, and so which means a total of 3 spaces instead of 4 spaces as required by code will be provided. That's the second variance. The last variance has to do with the open space. In the townhome development standards, it requires open space of 250 square feet per unit. And this open space would have to be accessible from the ground level. So this proposed development will have the open space, the square footage required by code. However, they're not all directly at ground level. Some of them will be in the form of a balcony on the second level, and some will have the required open space on the ground level, such as the first 3 and the last 3, because they have the advantage of the front yard and rear yard. So those are the 3 variances that this project will be requesting in order to develop the type of product and the type of project that are proposed. So with that, I'd like to be able to answer any questions that you may have as far as the design. The applicant unfortunately had to leave early because of a family emergency. So I will try to answer any questions that you may have regarding the design. Thank you.
I'm going to let Lynette go first.
Oh, and I just noticed that there's, in the rendering, there's 2 handicap parking spaces in the 12. Is that a requirement?
The typical requirement is 1, but they are providing 2. So
only because that then takes away from the guest parking spaces.
Because you still have to have the ramp. So
Right.
They did end up providing 2 spaces, and those spaces are guest parking anyway. They will not be able to assign them, so they have to be available
Right.
at all times.
But if there's nobody handicapped that's visiting, then you lose 2 guest parking spaces.
But I believe it is a requirement by the building code.
Okay.
Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why aren't they just exercising the small lot ordinance?
Because they don't actually meet the small lot ordinance. They couldn't meet that.
How so?
Because they would have to. They don't have the frontage required, or they have to create like a private street in order to do that.
But, I mean, it looks like we've got a little private street on the site now. I'm
sorry to want to interfere, but the small subdivision was only approved in specific development districts, so it's only allowed in the Charter Zoning Code, Harbor, as well as Metro East. So this is a particular reason R2 property, so it wouldn't.
If this was a property in one of those areas, would this have been?
Correct. They could have done a small subdivision.
Okay. So instead, we're going to have to play with variances on this instead of just use a tool that we already have in our toolbox.
Well, because when we did the small lot, it's specific to those zoning district, and they wouldn't be able to, apply the small lot subdivision standards because they're not qualified.
Well, no, they're just not in a geographic area.
Yeah, exactly, so they don't qualify to apply.
Which I, at the time, had said we should let it be in R2s, but I'm not going to play that. I told you so. But the other thing is, so we're applying for the variance. For me, the variance, it frustrates me because the variance is what can't they do? Like in other words, they can't physically meet it. I mean, in theory, they could, I don't want to say it, but lose units and do some other things.
Yes.
So there's nothing here that's super extraneous that's requiring it. And what's even more frustrating is they have potentially a tool. Is it possible for them to maybe use a, oh goodness, what is it? Like an SD for this, or is it not large enough?
Well, for the SD, there's no specific size requirement, so anybody could apply for SD.
So under an SD, they wouldn't be applying for a bunch of variances. They would just kind of say, we're going to be a specific development utilizing the, I'm sorry, I don't want to try to muddy one quarterback, but because I just don't like the idea of us being given projects and then saying, well, if you like the project, then you're going to approve all these different variances, where it should be, hey, this is the rule, and then here's the project. But staff generally keeps doing the opposite, and it's frustrating. I just don't like seeing that because it seems like we're playing favorites. It seems like we're, well, we like this project, so we'll bend the rules, but over here we won't. And to me, it's just much cleaner and easier if we have rules that everybody's going for. In fact, to staff's credit, the Harbor Corridor Plan is a testament to providing the rules up front. And what I love with the statistic on that, it's like we had 2 over 20 years, and then over the last couple of years, we've had exponentially more projects come in, and we don't even have to see them at the commission or the council level. So that's just my 2 cents. It just frustrates me to see us always trying to have a project lead the rule change, where if we do have a project that's going to inspire that, I mean, with this adaptive reuse, we had a project at Washington and Maine that was really kind of the spotlight of going that direction towards adaptive reuse, but we didn't approve the project and then the adaptive reuse. In fact, that project died because we were waiting to approve the adaptive reuse. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Ken?
Could you tell me how big the lot is? What's the size of this particular project?
The lot is about approximately 38,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what's existing on the site now? Is there a home there?
I believe there are 2 homes.
Okay, and so what, I'm trying to get, I see the renderings, they look nice, but they're 2-story, looks like, I'm just Googling it on my phone, the surrounding homes seem to be 1-story, but it looks like there's maybe a 2-story next door, because I'm just trying to think of scale for that neighborhood.
They're actually multifamily. There are a mixture of single-story and 2-story structures in the area, and this proposal is actually 3 stories.
If that's correct.
Yes.
The garage.
Like a loft
Oh,
space
right,
up
right,
above.
right. Okay. Yeah.
So I have another question for you. I emailed Vince about this earlier today. As far as a path of travel from the street, so it looks like on the northern side of I would say the 6 units in the middle, it seems like there's some sort of common walkway, but I don't see where, if you were coming from the street, how you make that transition other than just going on the driveway.
Well, the walkway is actually on the south side of the property. They just didn't color it correctly, so they did all green, but if you look, there's a dashed line that shows a 5-foot continuous access walkway on the south side of the property all the way from Bewley Street to the rear.
I see the note. So is that going to be like not DG, but like some sort of grasscrete or something?
Yes, it would have to be in a decorative paving.
Right, but if it's a path of travel, it'd have to be something that a wheelchair could access.
Yes.
Right. And then what are these little pop-outs on the south end? There's 4 of them. These little orange, like rectangles on the bottom here. Is that stairwells?
They look like stairs.
Steps to get in.
Yeah, that's why I'm not clear.
It's frustrating that the applicant's not here. I mean, just to kind of understand this, because as I look at this, Commissioner Bracero's trying to figure out what I thought that was trash.
You mean the 4?
Yeah, I just thought they were bins, but there's no legend either to kind of try to help. So
This is a work study, so the good news is our questions can become.
That's true. That's a
part
good
of the
point.
feedback to the applicant, and hopefully they'll be prepared to answer those questions.
They look like steps going from the unit to the green
To the
side.
garage?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
That might be
They're not in the
that might be
renderings.
the access point to go.
So we can clarify that next time it comes
Into the
before you. It's
garages.
probably 30 days or so before you see it, so we'll be sure that's clarified.
Any other questions of staff at this point?
The off-street parking, where would that be? What's this, is that out on Harbor?
I'm sorry?
It's above here, Broad Street Park.
Oh,
2 garages and then the guest parking.
That's your guess park.
The parking, each unit has a 2-car garage, and then there are 12 guest parking spaces. There will be street parking available on Bewley, but that's
Okay,
just first come,
that's-
first serve.
And are they able to park a car right in front of their garage?
No, they will not be able to, because that's a shared driveway. So
Is that fire
And
access
there's a
issue?
fire access on the first one.
on the first driveway, yes, that's also a fire access.
And fires review this, they can get all the way up to the left-hand side?
Yes, which they have worked out the fire access with the fire department as a hammerhead, as you see in the
So they're measured out against their fire truck.
So speaking of the fire access issue, so I'm looking at the west side of the plan, it looks like it's about 100 and some change feet for a hose pole. And I see the line going, let's call it from north to south. So is that to assume then, if there was a call for service for those units on the west side of the project, the fire truck would just go straight in, do what it needs to get the hose out and take care of business, but then they would have to just back up? I mean, not that our guys aren't experienced enough to do that, but I know a lot of times fire really wants, like the hammerhead like you see here. So I'm just curious that they're okay with it up front, but they're not too concerned with it in the rear? I mean, I don't want to speak for fire, it's a question of mine.
I will make sure, I discussed this with the OCFA representative, and we will get back to you on that. I would not want to, not being an expert on the fire access, I would not try to answer that question.
Well, I appreciate that they put in hose pull. I mean, it kind of at least tells us that there was some thought put into it, but it just kind of like some of the other comments you've heard from my colleagues, I think there's a little incompleteness in the site plan, just trying to understand it from our perspective.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make sure I relate these concerns to the applicant.
Okay. Thank you. Staff, any comments at this point in time? Vince?
Just one comment. Ann gave you a presentation on the Dooley project. I don't know if you also know, but she's decided to leave us, and she's going to retire, believe it or not. 30-year-olds can retire nowadays, I guess, through the PERS system. So.
We're here all night, folks.
But Ann is retiring effective the 19th, I believe, April 19th. So this is her last appearance before you. So
good luck. Congratulations.
Just want to let you all know that she is moving on to greener pastures. So we appreciate everything she's done for us. Thank you. And so now someone else will pick up this project.
Any other comments from staff?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to know when's Ann will have her retirement party. I would like to join.
Ann hasn't given me any details yet. She's a very private person, and I think she wants to just fade off in the sunset and ride off on the old horse. But we're trying to get something together for Ann. We'll let you know if we do pull something together. But she's just pretty shy and doesn't want all the attention thrown upon her. So.
I have a privilege to know Ann New for like about 20 years, I guess. I wish you well, and we're going to miss you. Good luck. I hope you spend a lot of time traveling and enjoy the rest of your retirement.
Ken, do you have any other comments? No. Beatrice?
Yes, I do. I wanted to let you guys know that I attended the 4th Annual Local Government Conference. The title was, Will California Ever Figure Out How to House Itself? And it was held at Chapman University. They gave a lot of great information. They actually did a survey where a lot of people responded. And, some of the key things that I learned there was that, of course, and we probably already know, the rents are historic highs. Homeownership is the lowest since the Second World War. And as you know, we have a housing shortage according to the studies, and that results in the high prices of the homes and the rentals. And evictions are the highest in almost every major city in the state. So, of course, we have a homeless problem, and that could be a result of that as well. So, it's just great information. If you go onto the Chapman website, they actually have all the slides that they showed us at the conference. It was well attended, lots and lots of people. And the other thing, I just wanted to ask you for prayers, and also I had asked Mark if we can close the meeting in memory of Nellie Kaniski. Nellie Kaniski was a longtime resident of Santa Ana, and she also worked for Santa Ana College. She was very involved in the community, and just, I asked for prayers for her family. Thank you.
Cynthia.
Good luck, Ann. Enjoy the end of the year.
Eric?
Yeah, good luck, Ann. I'll be there in 30 years.
Lynette?
congrats, Ann. So good luck on whatever your next endeavor is in life. I wanted to ask Vince, when are we going to get I had made a request when we had that Main Street Bar and Grill project come up, asked for a chronological on what's transpired on that property.
All that will be
couple of
part of
years.
the presentation in the next few weeks.
Okay.
What's happened is we requested an extended notification, so they're pulling all that together to get 2,000 feet. Was quite a bit of work on their consultant's part, so we're just getting that finalized. Once we do, we'll need to renotice it because we didn't schedule for a date certain meeting. So probably sometime in May, and that'll be part of the package. That I think quite a few of you asked for that chronology of the activities.
Perfect.
So that'll be part of it.
Thank you. And I thank you, Beatrice, for asking about Nellie, because I think she's an integral part of Santa Ana. I worked with her when I was a mentor for MANA in Orange County. So Nellie was a really, really fantastic woman.
Bill.
I also want to echo everybody's sentiment. Congratulations. Good luck in what you pursue. Only one follow-up for staff, and that is MHA. Have they submitted anything at this point? I know they had a certain time frame which to submit for permits. Have they done anything at this point?
Well, have they submitted permits? No, sir, they have not. Are they required to? Probably not. We found a letter dated back to 2002, essentially a settlement agreement with MHA that basically allowed them to operate as they are. There was some kind of interpretation of some state law that I think the Attorney's Officer Alvaro found it. We couldn't find it in the court cases, but Alvaro found it in a file that says, we tried to pursue them for this activity they're doing right now, which is a little more than just counseling, and we agreed to settle to let them operate. So we're still going through that whole file and determining if that's legitimate or not. There's other things we can pursue them on, some of the maintenance problems and some of the loitering and stuff, maintenance of the property, loitering, other secondary effects. But as far as the actual use itself, there's some question whether or not we can require a CUP for them. So, and that was just found in a file just like really recently, the last week or so.
So this isn't a set determination. You guys are still researching the validity of this.
Correct. The city attorney, the letter stated some state law that says how they're exempt from our jurisdiction. And back in 2002, we said, yeah, you're right. And so now we're checking to see if that section's still valid.
I'd be very curious to find out, because that kind of scares me to think that any organization like this could just thumb their nose at the land use process and just operate.
Yeah, and that's the way, and I can get you that information if you'd like, but it's the way that the language is written. Gives them a lot of latitude in how they operate. Basically, it has to do with welfare. Yeah, welfare law. Basically, says any type of council facilities can operate, as they deem necessary to pursue their mission.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Well, if you want, send me an email and I can get you some background on that.
Perfect. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to thank Ann for her service, and I'd like to also close the meeting in your honor for all your years of service and what you've done with the planning department in the city of Santa Ana. So thank you. And with that, meeting is adjourned.